Hi everyone, and welcome back to Pro-Life University. This is Joe Kral, President of the Society of St. Sebastian, and again, just welcome back to our weekly class. We always appreciate you coming in, and always, guys, if you can, give us a big thumbs up. We always appreciate that. Share with your friends, subscribe to the channel, do all the necessary things to get the information out there to help us all become better pro-life advocates for pro-life legislation. And on that note, we are going to talk about what are called abortion trigger bans today. And we're going to kind of compare and contrast, if you will, to some legislative initiatives that would outlaw abortion here and now. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is and not really an effective approach at this present time. Let me first begin by saying this much. There are attempts out there to outlaw abortion. And so one of the things that we can look at, for example, so the June medical case was heard just the other day at the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, one of the things to always keep in mind is that any pro-life law, whether it deals with parental consent, whether it deals with informed consent, ultrasound, a clinic regulation, any of the various pro-life laws that we pass, has the capability of overturning Roe. It doesn't have to be an outright abortion ban. Let me first and foremost say that. It can be any pro-life law that overturns Roe. And in fact, it can be a law that doesn't necessarily deal with abortion. So we can get into Unborn Victims of Violence Acts. So for example, states that have passed laws that say, you know, if you commit a criminal action such as drunk driving and you hit a pregnant woman and injure or even kill her unborn child, you can be charged for a crime against that unborn child. Even that sort of law has the potential to overturn Roe. We can also look at laws that might regulate in vitro fertilization or define the embryo that's created through in vitro fertilization as a person. That even has the potential to overturn Roe. So there's many avenues that are out there to overturn Roe v. Wade. So this is an important sort of thing to bear in mind when we talk about these various legislative initiatives. But the mere fact that some want to overturn Roe v. Wade right now, and they think that they can do that by just banning it in their state right here, right now, is really going to prove to be kind of an ineffectual sort of avenue. That doesn't seem to be the case right now, that a state can just simply do this. We're already encountering, you know, obviously various problems with states that, for example, are trying to ban or rather define themselves as sanctuary cities where they won't enforce federal immigration laws. And there's already fights about those sorts of things. Does the federal government have the right to say no to give those cities federal money? And, you know, that was obviously fought in the courts. And the courts are saying, yes, that the federal government does have the opportunity to just simply say, well, we're not going to give you federal funds if this is the case. But beside that particular point, the simple fact is that the Constitution, one of the things that we need to understand is that the Constitution certainly provides us avenues to outlaw abortion. We can either revisit it with a pro-life law, like I just explained. A state of, or rather a convention of states can be called, and they can try to pass an amendment. Or you can start the amendment process in Congress as well. There are very many different avenues to where Roe v. Wade can be overturned. So let me first and foremost say that. And probably the most effective thing that we can do, and many states have tried this, some states have been successful. Louisiana has been successful in this endeavor. And some states are really trying to go out and trying it. I know Ohio's trying it. I know Texas has tried it. Utah's trying it right now as well. There's lots of states out there that are trying to pass what are called abortion trigger bans. Now, what is this? Now, an abortion trigger ban is basically the idea that, you know, you get the bill through the legislature, passes through the House, passes through the Senate, then goes to the governor. Governor signs it into law. Well, it doesn't come into effect immediately or even in a few months down the road, but rather it only takes effect when Roe has been overturned, meaning that these states have passed a law. So when Roe is officially overturned, abortion immediately becomes illegal within those states. Now that's pretty, forward thinking, if you will. And that's why we call them a trigger ban, because they're triggered, they go into effect literally at the moment Roe is overturned, or it's determined that Roe has been overturned. And so many states have been out there trying to pass this kind of legislation. Now, let me just simply say this. Why do we need to do these sorts of things? Why do state legislatures need to pass this sort of bill? Why do governors need to sign this sort of bill, and so forth? Well, one, it really prepares that state for the day, and I think this is the most obvious answer. It certainly prepares that state for the day when Roe is overturned. You don't have to worry about going through the legislative process within the state. It's there. It's done. The simple fact is it certainly recognizes that this law can immediately go into effect. All right, and so it does. And I think that's sort of a wonderful opportunity. Like I said, it's forward thinking. And I think in many respects, as a strategy, a lot of especially solidly pro-life states need to pass this type of legislation. Now, there may be a political perspective that we ought to look at here as well. And I think one of the things that we certainly need to explore is we certainly have many states right now that are trying to pass what are called abortion abolition bills. And basically what it is, and as I was explaining just a little while ago, is it would be a bill that bans abortion in that state now. Well, again, like I said, here's the problem. The likelihood of that surviving a challenge right now as it stands, and we're not quite sure where the court's going to go. The court might overturn Roe with the June medical case that's before it. Then again, it may not. And so we don't quite know. There's certainly been severe questions of kind of usurping the power of the Constitution when it comes to these sorts of bills too, because usually what happens is the people that are advocating for these sorts of bills, the various advocates that advocate for that sort of bill, in some ways are asking people, and especially legislators, those that hold elected office, to kind of ignore the avenues that are presented within the U.S. Constitution. And I think that's troublesome, to say the least. The Constitution is something that is, in all honesty, it's really good. The simple fact is that we have avenues. If the Supreme Court rules on something and people think it's a bad decision, that they've in effect made bad law, we have avenues in which the U.S. Supreme Court can be overturned. We got to remember, we have three co-equal branches. We have a legislative branch, we have an executive branch, and we certainly have the judiciary. And there are many, and not to mention the states that are on this as well. So as I mentioned earlier, these folks could certainly call a convention of states to overturn a decision like that and start the amendment process that way. Congress could certainly initiate a constitutional amendment, and they could start to that process that way in which to overturn it. Or again, you can have laws that are passed, such as the various incremental laws that we've been using throughout the last 40 plus years now, to try to incrementally change our culture into a culture of life. And hopefully some of those incremental laws can have an impact and might even overturn Roe as well. So there's many constitutional avenues that are before us that can do this. And so I kind of think that in many ways, trigger bans are really kind of the way to go. And I would certainly stress to those legislators out there that this is certainly a solid constitutional method in which to get your method across. That as soon as Roe is overturned, just like that, abortion becomes illegal. Now, why? Obviously, I think in many ways, a lot of pro-life legislators certainly recognize, well, we want to protect the unborn. They deserve protection. They deserve protection under the law. Why? Because they're human beings, they're human persons, and they have rights. And the most fundamental right is that right to life. I think with the trigger ban, you certainly give that much needed message to society. And the simple fact is a lot of people out there will certainly see that, and they'll certainly say, well, we as a state believe that the unborn child is deserving of rights, most fundamentally the right to life. And so the trigger ban helps secure that very needed principle under the law. Well, guys, I hope you like this little quick video. And again, give us a big thumbs up. We appreciate everything that y'all do. And if you can, always try to help us out. We appreciate everything. And I hope everyone has a blessed weekend. And again, let's pray for these states that are busy trying to pass these trigger bans. Ohio's busy in the middle of it. We got Kansas that's busy in the middle of it. Utah's in the middle of it. All these states. And I know Texas, they don't have a legislative session this year, but next year they will as well. This is something that they've been pushing for a long time. So, let's hope that they can get out and get this much needed push to finally get it through the Texas legislature as well. So everyone have a great weekend, and God bless.